Morning student. Today we are reading the chapter 6 air in the chemistry. Any organism, plant or animal cannot live without air. Nature has given us this resource in abundance. The earth is surrounded by a blanket of air known as the atmosphere, which is several kilometers thick. Okay, and one more thing we are knowing, in the atmosphere the presence of nitrogen is almost 78%. Okay, and the presence of oxygen is almost 21%, and carbon dioxide, it is present in 0.03%. So now the next point is presence of air. Air is invisible but present all around us. Generally, in fields, in all those spaces which are not occupied by anything else, strictly speaking, an empty room or an empty glass is not really empty. It is full of air. If we cannot see air, how can we say that it is present all around us? For example, we are sitting in a classroom, and that classroom, if no student is there, then we are saying the whole room is empty. But in actual condition, there is nothing is empty. There must be some gases are present. Okay, but now the question comes, how we can identify there is some air is present. Okay, so here we are doing an activity through which we are getting whether air is present in anything or not. Okay, so here is an activity. Invert an empty glass tumbler and push it right into a trough or bucket containing water. No water enter the tumbler. Now tilt it. You will find bubbles coming out of the tumbler and water entering it. Here we have taken a glass. Okay, it's a empty glass. We are, first of all, this is what a empty glass is there. Okay, first of all we are putting the same thing into the water bucket. Okay, now what will happen, the whole if we are going to tilt the same glass, what will happen, the air present inside this glass, first of all we are saying this is an empty glass, but whenever this empty glass we are tilting somewhat like this. Okay, what will happen, first of all this glass is situated like this. Okay, now we are tilting the same glass, then what will happen, some air is passing out of this glass and moving towards the upward, moving in a upward direction. So what will happen, here they are saying, what did you see, bubbles, the tumbler was filled with air. When you tilted the tumbler, the air inside it found its way out in the form of bubbles. No water could enter the tumbler when the bubble was in an inverted position. This is because air is lighter than water, so air remained on top and water remained at the bottom. So what will happen, air is a lighter, that's why when waters occupy the space of air, then what will happen, the air bubbles are passing out of the tumbler. Okay, now the next point is displacement of air by water and vice versa. Since water is heavier than air, it goes to the bottom when poured into a tumbler, and a volume of air equal to that of water comes out of the tumbler. We then say that water has displaced air from the tumbler. What does it mean? For example, here if we are taking a glass, this is what right now we are saying, it's an empty glass, but nothing is empty. In an empty glass there is air is already filled. Okay, but whenever we are pouring some water over it, then what will happen, whatever the air present inside this glass, it is comes out of the glass. Okay, now there is a air, the displaced substance goes upward. Such displacement is known as upward displacement. So in both the cases, whether this case are this case. Okay, in both the cases what will happen, air, the movement of air is in a upward direction. Okay, either you have to see in this case what will happen, the bubbles comes out and moving the upward direction, and here in this condition whenever we are powering the water, what will happen, whatever the air present inside this glass, it is moves to the upward direction. That's why the movement of air is in a upward direction. That's why such displacement, such movement is known as upward displacement. Okay, next point is, can air also displace water? Yes, it can. Now we are taking another activity. Fill a bottle with water. Close the mouth. First of all, see this figure, this one. Okay, so fill a bottle with water, close its mouth with your thumb and invert it into a trough or bucket of water. Remove your thumb and hold the bottle with its mouth under the water. Introduce one end of a bent drinking straw into the bottle and blow from the other end. You will find bubbles rising up the liquid and collecting in the upper part of the bottle. The level of water in the bottle falls as air collects in the bottle. Finally, the bottle will be full of air and the level of water in the bottle will become the same as that in the trough or bucket. Do you now see that air can displace water? In this displacement exactly similar to the previous one? No, this is the downward displacement of water. Okay, now we can understand the same thing with the help of figure. Okay, so what will happen here, this is what, this is a tumbler. Okay, in a tumbler we are putting a glass. What will happen, right now we are putting the water till here. Now what will happen, whenever we are providing the air, what will happen, whatever the air is there, it is going to fill in this space. Okay, and what will happen, now this water moves in the downward side. Okay, now it will come at the position of this one. So what will happen here, this space occupied by air. Okay, now this water moves in the downward direction. That's why this movement is called downward displacement. Now the next point is, does soil air contain air? Does soil contain air? You have learned that air fills the space not filled by other substances. Thus it appears that air should not be there in the space filled by soil. But you should not come to this conclusion before doing the following activity. Okay, whatever the soil we have seen around us, okay, all soil, for example, these are the particle of soil. Okay, in the particle of soil, in between the two particles of soil, okay, there is some space is present. In this space there is a air is present. Okay, the same space, whatever the space we have seen in between these particle, there is some air is present. Okay, but how can we identify whether there is some air or not? Okay, by conducting this activity. Take some soil from your garden or a park and put it in a glass of water. You will soon observe bubbles of air coming up. Why are the bubbles formed? Soil is made up of small particles between which there are spaces called pores. In other words, soil is porous. These pores are filled with air, and so soil contain air. When water enters these pores, it displaces the air. That is why the bubbles come out. So what will happen? First of all, this is a glass. In the same glass, first of all we are putting some soil. Okay, these are what? some soil, and whenever we are pouring some water over it, okay, then what will happen? Whatever the space present inside in between the two particles of soil, okay, the water enter into that space, and at that space there is some air is present. This air has a tendency to move upward direction, okay. This is what the same activity is given. So this also explains what you have learned in earlier chapter. When it rains heavily, earthworm and snakes comes out of the soil in search of air because water displaces the air in the soil. Okay student, today I am stopping my words here, okay, and the next part we will discuss in our next class. Thank you class.